Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Garage Studio Modelers. I'm Dave Forrest with my good friend
Harvey Lowe.
And today we're going to talk a little bit about the 251 Stuka Diffuse that I started a few episodes back, I guess, that I've finished. We took a bit of a break for the Christmas holidays, and now we're kind of back in the garage studio here. And I did do some work on this, and there is a viewer question which I'll get to in just a little bit. Hey, just wanted to thank everybody for all of the great comments we've gotten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been trying to keep in touch with all the comments. Not always the very best because we're busy building models, but we do read them all. And I know that I've seen lots of kudos and congrats to see us back. And I think that the main comment overall, Dave, is they like the chatter. They like the banter. So I guess our channel is a little bit different, that our topics may jump from one thing to the next. And like my Sheridan, I talked about it 2 years ago, and I'm going to talk about it a little later.
That's right. Yes.
But I think that people do enjoy this banter, and if you guys like that formula, we'll continue to do that, as opposed to dedicating an episode on a specific topic. We'll just kind of go back and forth in the banter.
I agree. So again, thank you everybody for the comments and the positive feedback. It helps keeps us motivated and engaged in this. So thank you very much for that. I agree. I think it's nice to have a couple of good friends that are that have been doing this for a while. That as we're doing work, there's always that there's questions, because I may be working on something and I may be zoned in on something and not really, there could be other opportunities to talk about things that you're pretty good about raising and bringing up.
So. And back and forth. And of course, we keep saying that Dave and I are always on film, but Robert behind the camera needs as much kudos because he's the guy editing 100%. And putting it all. He's never on the film except maybe once or twice. So Robert, you got to chime in and wave and show
Robert is the brains behind that.
Yes, not us.
Sure.
No,
we're just... We're just puppets.
The other
thank you.
He's in the background. The other thing that you'll never see from us is we have no blooper reel, because we do everything live, right?
Yeah,
we don't edit off. Like I think the only time we ever edit is when we show some pictures that we want to post that Robert puts in, but. All of our episodes, even when we're working on our models, there's absolutely no editing.
Yeah, it's always one take, which is nice.
Take.
Like we talk a little bit about, we just kind of frame out the what we're going to talk about, the topics and whatnot. But outside of that, a bit of prep. Just off the cuff.
So let's off the cuff your stuff.
Yeah, so let's get to the 251 here. So it's largely finished, as you can see, and Robert will get in and get some close-up shots of it. But I finished the camo, did the weathering on it, attached the crates with the mortars inside, and what I did is I looked. So this is a good example of where historical references can really help you out, because all of the pictures that I found either in my personal reference library or online, these crates and the mortars inside the crates are dirty, right? Because I guess they get shipped out, they lie in the mud. They get rolled around, and then they're mounted onto the vehicles, and then they go off and do their thing in combat. So I weathered the crates and the mortars inside the crates separately, as if like you incorporate some of the weathering that's on the vehicle, but I gave them a lot more attention just because of that. That time they would spend on the ground rolled up, and you can see pictures of like mud splashes and stains and whatnot in some of the historical photographs. So again, it's a good opportunity to incorporate that into the model, because it gives it that added level of realism, right? And then if you're doing, if you're entering in amps, there's always that historical reference bonus. If you're into that type of thing, I guess.
So if on that note, then if you were to enter at amps, would you suggest you put a note or a photo or something to say that these things were on the ground, and otherwise judging
might say, well, that's overdone, right? Or exactly.
Why is the weathering inconsistent and it's only on the crates and the rockets?
Exactly.
Right?
You got it right.
So were these then, Dave, like were they fired them and then they would take them off and put a new one on? That's why they're dirty? Is that is that it?
That's exactly right. Right. So they would ship these in the crates, or sometimes separately, and then put them in the crates. And then what I did here is on one of them, just to add a bit of variety, I did the mounting plate in a red primer.
Right.
left it as is, and then just natural wood on the crate itself, just to I didn't see anything on this in or at least I can tell in black and white historical photos, but I thought just as a bit of interest in the model. But again, going back to my earlier comments about this particular kit, and again, maybe a lot of this is user error. There's not a straight line on this, right? So if you look down, like even trying to get the the angle of the crates and the mortars. I mean, you have to do all that by eye. Now, to be fair, this was all manually adjusted in the field. Right. So there might be a bit of a discrepancy. These things weren't. This is far from a precision weapon.
Were they angled then? Were some up and down? Is that the idea?
Well, they were all angled for firing based on where the target was. Right. So there's a little kind of an angle indicator on each one of the plates. So I guess they would set it to a particular angle, right, and judge the distance and whatnot.
And they'd be fired all at once, because I remember reading somewhere that they weren't necessarily accurate weapons.
No, far from accurate.
They just fired a whole bunch, and hopefully the barrage would do its effect.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing is I didn't put. Now I'm going to put a little bit of stowage in there, but minimally, because if you think about it, if you're the crew in this thing, when these things fire off, there's a lot of exhaust fumes and like stuff spraying all over the place. So anything that's left inside the vehicle might get blown around, or you certainly wouldn't leave like a Panzerfaust in there, because that might set things off. So I didn't put a lot of stowage in there. When I do so I have that other 251/9, the Stummel with a gun, the 75mm gun. That I would put more stowage and hang stuff off of it and whatnot, but not on this one. So again, it's taking that what was it used for, that historical content or context rather, to kind of figure out how do you position the model.
Could you phrase it another way and say the model's telling the story, right?
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely, yeah.
Every little story.
Yeah.
So would the crew? And I honestly don't know the answer to this. If they were to fire this, the crew wouldn't be in the vehicle firing it. Would they be outside?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So they would get out. There would be like a cable. And they would set everything off, and they would fire. I think they would fire off in pairs.
Well, it looks great. Do you want to go over like the way you painted it? The camouflage is great.
Yeah. Thank you.
The benches are great.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. So there was a specific question. From Crazy Kit Builder, and he was asking about how do you determine the spacing of the camo, right? And the quick answer is, so for this one, I guess there's two things. So one is I used the instructions as best I could. So these are the drag instructions. This is the specific vehicle I did. So you try and make it it's a guide, but you try and make it as accurate as possible. So if you did an actual comparison of my camo versus here, it looks similar, but it's not the same. It's impossible to get it the same. Yeah. Right? At least for me it is. And then the other thing is just experience and practice. Right. So I don't like if you have a reference photo, you can use that to kind of judge the distance of the patterns and where they sit on the vehicle and the proportion to one another. But a lot of it is by eye, and I find like the nicest models that I've built have been ones where, sorry, let me rephrase that. The ones where I'm the happiest with the camo are the ones where I just kind of do it by eye, and there's like you're looking like there's you're trying to generally match it to something, but don't get too hung up on being too specific, right?
I find that it's also easy for me to envision as if I were actually applying the camouflage on the model in real life as one of the crew. And like I do that with my aircraft too. Pretend you're the one doing it, and that scale effect will result in a nicely defined camouflage pattern.
And then you'll figure out like the certain parts of the vehicle that just went camo, right? And then in this particular case, so the crates are not camouflaged, but the plates underneath are.
Right.
My assumption being that now while these vehicles, I think this is largely a field modification where they would take a regular 251D and just put these crates, because they're all attached, right? They just attach them on. So the camo doesn't necessarily, the camo on the crates, or on the frames rather, don't necessarily need to match the camo in the vehicle, because it would be done after the fact.
Right.
Now, I just put some on just to try and incorporate it, right? As this was driving without waiting for resupply in the case, that it would have some camo, so it wouldn't be just these yellow.
Yeah,
frames on it. But that's interpretation.
That is, and these were disposable crates too.
Well, yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So
Yeah, they
why
fired
would they?
once and then they would.
Why would they camouflage the crates?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Now, what kind of brand colors did you use? And what airbrush? And what air pressure? And blah blah blah.
But we did this. It was the AK range of colors that I used for the green and the red.
Those are beautiful.
Red brown. Yeah, they're very nice. I think I thinned everything with Mr. Color self-leveling thinner, right? And I used an HP, and I wanted HPB,
right?
Which has a point, I think 1.5 needle or 1.8 needle.
Yeah, a plus model, I think it is.
Yeah.
HPB plus. So yeah, those are great air pressures.
Yeah. So just and low air pressure.
Yeah, very low.
Like 10 psi.
People always ask me that when you're doing tight camouflage. I find don't use a high air pressure.
No.
You go down low.
Yeah.
I've even
low and thin paint.
Yeah, I've even gone as low as like 8 psi. People, oh God, you do that? Well, your paint is thin and your airbrush nozzle is close to the surface.
Yeah, and you have to keep, when you're doing it like this, you have to get fairly close.
Yeah.
Like you're within like an inch or less, half an inch.
I also find that when you're doing a nice tight pattern like this, as you're spraying, I spray off the model.
Yeah, exactly.
And then go on. If you do start on and off, you get splatter.
Yeah,
you could. It's kind of like spraying with a spray can. You don't use the spray can off.
There's an example of this on the back here, which I have to go back and fix. Right where I was too close in, and it
my God, I see it.
That's why you're not seeing the back of it. But
you're going to lose at a contest.
Well, I'm going to lose anyways. There isn't a right angle on this bloody thing, so it doesn't matter.
That's beautiful. Yeah, onto the pattern. When I look at German camouflage patterns, and I'm certainly not an expert on German armor, but the patterns were kind of evenly spread. Like, would that be fair? Like, you wouldn't see a vehicle where it's just camouflaged up here heavily with very little of the Dunkelgelb showing through, and then much wider. I found that they're generally
yes, but there are examples of I think Panzer IVs, Panzer IV H's, I want to say, where they just have the green along the bottom, and but again, it's probably something that was done in the field, very specific, not factory.
Sure.
Anything that, but yeah, you're right. In the vast majority of cases, it's evenly spread out.
Right.
Because. Yeah.
So you don't have to be too fussy about it.
No.
Unlike Japanese armor patterns, where there was a bit more consistency in look. And as it comes to me, when you're talking about the instructions, I read somewhere from one of my friends in Asia that the best references for Japanese armor camouflage patterns are actually the fine molds instructions, because because they did their homework on and the pattern and everything's in these. So that's a little bit different than German armor, where I'm sure that is just more of a broad representation of the camouflage pattern. I would think.
I mean, you think about it, like German. Like between this type of three-tone camo that's spread out, like feathered in, and like the Luftwaffe modeling, like from a replica, like from a modeling standpoint, they're the most complicated, right? Hard to do.
They are,
right, because they're just. But once you get the hang of it, right, it's
attractive.
But it's practice. There's, and I know some modelers they get very. They get very hesitant about moving forward because they don't want to recommend. Just practice.
Just practice.
Like go buy buy a Tamiya kit, build it out of the box. Don't do anything to it, and just use it as a painting mule, and just practice on that. I think as you do that, you'll get confidence. It's like anything else in life. As you practice, you get confidence with it, and you get better and better and better, and you learn. Like in life, you learn a lot more from a failure than you do any success. So. You don't get the opportunity to fail if you don't practice. So that's the best piece of advice I can give anybody out there, for whether it's building or painting or trying to photo etch or doing something different or trying a different pattern. Just practice. Just build, practice, and that you're going to get better over time, guaranteed.
You're going to see me practicing weathering on my Sheridan, which I haven't done in 3 years. 3 years. In 3 years of COVID, while we're talking about this, I've built perhaps 15 aircraft and only one armor, so feel like I'm really out of practice on armor.
You're really resurrecting this one.
Oh yeah, this Sheridan's going to be. Oh, I don't think he knows how to build armor and weather, but sometimes you do lose it if you don't keep practicing.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like the 40-year-old virgin, right?
Yeah.
If you don't use it,
Yeah,
you do lose it.
You do lose it.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Well, that's beautiful. That's right. No, now some of us were admiring the benches in there. Could you talk a little bit about how you did those wooden benches? It's kind of hard to see perhaps on the camera, but they're
we'll get some detailed shots in there. But it was just paint them in a like one of the Vallejo wood colors,
okay.
like
hand painted.
All hand painted.
Okay.
So first of all, I prime them in the dark brown. Then I paint them with one of the old the Panzer Aces, old wood, new wood.
Okay.
Iraqi sand is another popular color. And then I work in some chipping. So I'll do if I do a darker wood color, I'll work in some lighter wood color, like chipping, and then I just put a dark brown wash over it.
But how do you chip it? You're not doing the hairspray. You're just chipping by hand.
Just with a brush.
Oh, with a brush.
With a fine brush, right? And maybe a sponge. Maybe use a sponge with a fine brush to get the kind of work in the wood grain. That type of thing.
Yep.
And just do maybe we'll do a separate episode on just how to do nice wood effects.
Since I'm bugging you, how did you do the mud?
The mud was just that it was like that 8K diorama, that acrylic diorama paste.
Right.
It's acrylic, so you thin it down with water and you just apply it on. Now the problem with that stuff though is it has because it has this grit texture. That grit can be a little bit sparkly, right? Kind of like glitter or something. So what I do is I put that on and I just put another I use Tamiya flat earth, spray it on lightly. Just to knock it back and to bring everything together.
Because I do find they're bright. Those acrylic pastes are bright, so they're muting them. Okay.
Yeah. Or just I use the dark one, like a dark paste, a dark mud colored paste. So that's all it was. Like I was going to put more. I was going to put paint, and I was pretty happy with the way it looked. So I didn't really do much more with it.
Know when to stop.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep going, guys. It's too busy.
Yeah, you don't want to overdo stuff.
Don't overdo it.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful, Dave.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you. So just quickly, so the next subject here is this little 48 scale Tamiya Sherman, which I purchased over the holidays, and then immediately ordered some stowage. So this is Value Gear stowage, and then I think it's a Passion Model photo etch set that I got. So I ordered that all from B&A Models, and so last night I was just putting on the last of the photo etch, and then started putting on the resin stowage, and I think for me, well I think for everybody, but I find I have to wet sand the resin. So when you're removing or just trying to flatten out the backs of them. So these really didn't have any casting blocks. I didn't really have to saw anything off. So it was just a matter of sanding the back end flat. I wet sanded everything. And what I should have done is I should have used gloves because I found my fingers got irritated with the wet sanding.
With the resin.
Yeah. So I just have maybe I have this allergy to it.
I don't.
And I know in the past when I've dry sanded it and the dust gets in the air.
Oh, that's no good.
It's horrible.
No, that's no good.
Yeah.
I always wet sand.
Yeah.
Always,
exactly. So I think one of the viewers asked a question about how to deal with resin. So we'll do a specific episode on that in the not too distant future. But just if you're working with resin. If you have to sand it, wet sand it, and
all the time. Yes, all the time.
Just to keep the dust from getting into the air, because once it's airborne, it's an irritant and it might be carcinogenic, right? Probably, right? Like you got to be careful with that stuff, right?
It also has a lubricant when you're sanding to make the scratches less so on the parts. But let's do a future episode as one of our readers suggested, because when you have large casting blocks, how do you get them off? And there's several ways that you can do that. So we'll do that in a separate episode.
Yeah.
Right. So the Value Gear, very good.
Yeah.
It looks very natural.
It does. Yeah. Like some of the resin stuff after the folds and the tar, they don't look realistic. But this particular set is beautiful, and it's like it's 48 scale. It's 4 Allied vehicles. So I saw it. I picked it up. And I'm really happy I did. And then I'll probably add a few more things onto it, and then I'll add some on this rear deck here. I'll add some rope, some scale rope to tie it down.
Right. And I guess you'll paint it with acrylics. Is that how you normally do your stowage?
Yeah.
With the folds and the
Okay. That'll be a bit of an exercise. Not terribly good at that, but we'll figure that out.
Like you say, practice, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I'll paint everything in situ. So right now, it's just this is one of the older 48 scale that has the metal tub, and they give you screws.
Oh,
so
right
now it's just screwed in.
Now, what's the logic with metal hulls? Can you someone tell? I don't know. Some of this adds weight to the vehicle.
It does. It does.
But why would that?
I don't know. That's even the newer kits, like they've gotten away from the metal tub, which is good because metal tubs are.
No, I don't like them.
I don't like them either. I'm not a big fan. But they still give you weights. Like they'll give you like these big, like steel rods to put in to weight down the model.
Well, maybe if one of our readers could tell us the logic behind that.
I think it's just I don't know why they do it.
I mean, they do that. Remember, they used to do that with the waterline ships. The ones they give you a metal. I don't know anything to do with that.
Are they
anymore.
afraid they're going to blow
like,
away?
yeah, they're going to blow away. I found no use for them. And some guys say, well, it adds natural weight to the tank so it sits properly. I don't know. It just if you could add a weight inside the hull,
if you had workable suspension,
that might be different.
Maybe, but
anyways, I just don't like working with metal and plastic.
No, because you gotta, and it's harder.
Anyways, we're off track, but that's the way
minor gripe for
that's the banter we do on this channel, don't we? And it looks like you added some casting on the hull
just a Mr. Surfacer and just stippled it in, right, just to give it a little bit of something, and then did a lot of the like on the added applique armor, did some like torch cuts.
Oh,
just like soften it with glue Tamiya thin cement, and just take a sharp knife to it.
Oh, I didn't notice it when I was looking at it. Right?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see.
And the barrel is not from the kit.
No, the barrel is, I think it's an RB barrel or an Aver barrel.
Okay,
one of the it's something. I can't remember, but again, ordered it from B&A. B&A's great service.
Oh, they are,
all the way from Australia. If you just use the regular post, which I use, it's 2 weeks door to door. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's relatively cheap.
I just, in fact, for the Sheridan, which we'll talk about in another episode once I get back to it, because I needed the parts to continue filming on this channel, I just ordered a whole bunch of stuff from B&A, including all the stowage gear, because I know it's going to get to me quick.
Yeah, well, you can if you want, like, if you're really desperate for something, you get it in a few days. You can do the DHL option. It's 3 times the cost, but if you're really desperate to get it quickly, there is that option.
We should do a separate issue on postage rates because they've gone through the roof.
In some places.
Really.
Yeah, in some places.
But that's great. Now, what scheme are you going to...
Olive drop. This will be like a Normandy tank.
Normandy?
Yeah, olive drop, right. So I just use... I don't know if I'm going to paint the stars on, or I'll use the kit decals. But yeah, this will just be an olive drop thing with a bunch of stowage on it. So I'm going to probably put some more stowage, and then
you like 48th.
Yeah, Sandy McCrory got me into 48th. I resisted as long as I could, and then finally I did a Stug and loved it, and now I have this will be my sixth build.
I haven't broken down yet for 48th Army.
But I've got another 12 in my stash.
Do you? That's nothing. Now, if Tamiya's listening, if you guys did a 48th Chiha, I'm in. But
yeah, that's surprising, eh?
That is surprising, right?
They do the modern.
They do.
They do the modern stuff, but they haven't done any of the World War II stuff for 48th. I'm sure that's coming. That's got to be happening.
You think, eh? I'm sure it'd be a great seller.
It would be,
right?
Like the Type 89 or Chiha.
Yeah, Type 89 and 148th.
Or a Honey.
A Honey, the self-propelled gun. Yes.
One of my favorite tanks.
Yeah, a Honey. We're on YouTube, so you guys can guess and read between the sentences, but we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Now, one of the things you do that I don't do is you assemble your wheels and then paint. I can't do that. You put your wheels and then you put your tracks on, and then you paint it. I've never done that.
Well,
I've never done that.
Well, it's not my. I've gotten more comfortable doing it. It's not my go-to, right? So if I can keep them off,
yes.
Like this, I could I could well, yeah, I don't know, maybe this I might look at and see if I can pull it off. That way, I can just get at the underlying chassis easier.
Right.
But I've gotten comfortable painting everything in situ.
I've never.
And the reason for that is that you can't, if you can't see it. Like, if you can't see it, you can't paint it, you can't get, nobody's going to see it.
But sure, with all the mud and stuff, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Now, if you're doing a very clean build, that might be a little bit more difficult. But the mud helps because you just you work it in there and you can you don't have to be terribly precise about it.
I've never done it. I just find painting the wheel, the rim and rubber and the track.
So I don't, if I paint this, just like I did on these guys, on the 251, I prime it in a dark brown, or I'll prime it in a black,
Mm-hmm.
and then I never go over the wheels again. So what I'll do is I'll spray, like in this case, I spray the yellow,
Okay.
right,
Yeah.
inside, and then there might be a little bit of overspray, but that gets covered by the mud.
But what about the black rubber rims around some of the wheels?
But you can still see they're still
Ah, they're still there. Okay.
right, because you're just
Oh, so you're
working-
doing that first, and then you're misting on the webbing, right?
No, yeah. Well, I paint. Yeah, so I prime it in a dark color.
Yeah.
So the dark color ostensibly represents the rubber color.
I see
right?
what
So
you're
it's
getting
already
at.
there.
Right, I see.
And then I'll paint the
Gotcha.
yellow
Gotcha.
or the olive drab in this case.
Sure.
And then I just try and stay away from overspray. But there might be a little bit of overspray, but it gets covered up by the mud anyways.
Ah,
so it's one of those things where I just find, and like, people paint,
Yeah,
but
it's a lot of work.
it depends. Like, because I go. Well, maybe a little bit heavier on the weathering than
No, you're weathering
some might.
subtly
Well,
nice.
but I cover everything.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
some might, like if you had steel rims that are shiny, that are polished,
Yes.
that might be a little bit more difficult to do.
Right.
But you still, but again, if you can't see it, can't get to it, doesn't matter.
That's true.
All right. So there's that whole philosophy. But
Yeah. You know, on a side note, I'm building a Blenheim, Airfix Blenheim.
oh yes,
Mark I.
yes.
And it comes with a radio in the back fuselage. You can't see it, like, at all. And it's got this beautiful detail. I just
You'll know it's there.
I don't paint it.
Yeah.
I just left it. But it acts as a reinforcer to the fuselage. So, I mean, I digress, but it's like you say, if you can't see it, then
Yeah.
don't fuss with it.
Yeah, and even in this, like, there's a bottom pan that has, a bit of the transmission, I think an oil pan or something, but it gets all covered up.
Yeah.
And if you put it all in there, it interferes with the fit, right? So I put it in because I was following the instructions, and then I didn't maybe look far enough ahead. But when I tried to fit, so I just ended up removing it, cutting it off.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't see, like, it's a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, your models always turn out great. So
Well, thank you.
whatever works.
Yeah. It's again, practice. Always be building. Always be practicing.
Yes, always be practicing for sure. I know it's a hobby, but always practice, and you'll always get great results.
You'll get better, and you get more confidence. And,
Yeah.
right? Just, and even when something fails, you learn more from a failure than any success.
And do research, as you say, to get it right.
Yeah, look at historical pictures. Go online, Google.
I get as much excitement in the hobby doing the research as building.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you ever look at dirty? Well, I meant dirty trucks, not dirty anything. Dirty trucks on the highway when you're driving.
Yeah, I do.
I look at dirty.
I might even
things
if I'm not driving, I might even snap a picture of like a dirty muffler or nicely. Yeah, for sure. It gives you.
I look at dirty things. I mean, I look at dirty trucks all the time. Just saying,
Yeah.
because it gives you an idea of the way weathering occurs, and it's not one color. There's a splatter there. Look around the environment.
Yeah, it's just one thing that you can take that you can add to it. Just gives that depth, right?
Might as well do something when you're stuck in traffic.
There's a lot of traffic around here.
Well, in Toronto,
in this city.
Are we the only city in North America with traffic problems? Probably not.
No, I would say most definitely not.
So come to Toronto and you'll experience a lot of mud. Great. Nice stuff.
Well, I guess we'll kind of wrap it up there for today, and then we'll kind of get ready for the next episode where we'll focus on the Sheridan.
Yeah. And my attempts to bring back weathering after like 3 years of not doing any weathering at all.
So let me ask you before we wrap up, how many in progress builds do you have right now?
I already know how many in my head, because I count them. 15.
Okay.
I have 15 on the go. But David, I always finish what I start. Just saying.
I've got 18 or 19.
18 or 19?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sandy says he's only can do one at a time. I can't do that.
Nah, I can't do that.
I gotta shift
I gotta
it
jump
up.
around.
But yeah, I have 15 on the go.
I don't always finish them. Some of them have been sitting for years and may not.
Are you a wall thrower? Do you know what a wall
No.
thrower is? A wall thrower is like, I'm sick of this, and you whip it at the wall. Like
I've done that once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Never.
don't
I
do
was
that.
Very young.
But we digress, and I will get back to my Sheridan build in another episode, because I know some guys are asking about that.
Sounds good. All right. Take care, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.